They've been really good.
I was really disappointed last night with that the Americans didn't take it, but that's okay. Silver's good.
Yeah. Well, they took it from Canada, I think, last time.
Well, actually, the last 2 times. So yeah, it was good. Evening, Jessica.
Hello.
Hello. Sorry.
There's Mr. Titan.
Carolyn, my son found me this in a store, and it was like my dad would love this. So it's an old velvet painting. You got it from like a thrift store. So I've loved this thing.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Tim.
Hi.
Sorry it's so late. Maybe we need to change it a little bit for you since it's a little bit easier.
It can't always work out for me. Hopefully I'll be headed home someday.
Yeah.
Hey, Tim.
Hi.
You dried out a little bit down there?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, everything's dry down here. We're supposed to get a little rain tonight.
Actually, you've been getting more. You've been getting more precipitation than we have.
Yeah, absolutely. We have.
I shouldn't be laughing. I thought
it said like sometime next week we should have more rain.
My internet is not great, so if you lose me, I'll call in.
Got it.
We're slowly headed to my son's for their first child and our first grandchild. So
wow.
And then after that, we will be headed your way.
It's always nice to go on vacation, but it's always nicer to come home. That's what I feel like.
I agree with you 100%. I've said that my whole life. It's nice to go, but it's nice to come home.
Yep.
I'm having to use the iPad because my 10-year-old MacBook Pro, according to the guys in Bandon, it's had a good run. one more update, and you really, that's it.
This is gonna be a long meeting. Looks like.
Please don't curse us. Come on. Yeah,
I think we should. I've read everything, so I'm ready to vote on it already.
Yeah. I think as big as it was, I did the same thing. I wrote next to it, what's going on? How do I just have a couple? I have a couple of questions, but yeah.
When I was at the city park today for a meeting, and I took my big packet and sat underneath the gondola for the 30 minutes just to like rebrush up from over the last week. It's like, oh man.
Yeah, that packet with the International Building Code, that was.
There are a few things I had to read twice.
Yeah, 3 times.
Why? Yeah, there's certain things you're just like.
Sometimes with the dictionary, there are a few times I've had to grab that during the code. I was like, "Ooh, dictionary time! Let me make sure I know what this is."
Yeah.
Wow.
But most of it was safety issues, which that's what we've been kind of talking about.
Yep.
And the pros ended up working it out.
I was reading in National Geographic about Notre Dame and how they're repairing it. And what saved the building was when they did the reconstruction back in and the people hated him. The guy's name was Duloc, but he sprayed at that time what they thought was a fire retardant on the inside of the building, and then had some new frescoes put up and stuff like that. People hated him. You're ruining it. That actually it saved most of the structure that wasn't wood because of that spray of that stuff on there. They were amazed, but it was just a concoction that they came up with, but it worked. Yeah, this is a coffee meeting tonight, I can tell. Jessica, I love that those letters were all in cursive.
Oh, I know.
Did you notice that?
I did. I actually noticed that, and I made a comment actually because I had them. Today was their final field trip day,
Right.
And they were at City Hall today, and they met with Chief Hobart, and he went through, and then we went through stuff with me too. So, and actually, we got another pack of them since this packet. So,
my neighbor girl was there today, and she's like, "I was at City Hall today." I'm like, "Oh, that's cool." And she showed me the city packet you guys gave her, and I'm like, "Look at whose name is that?" And she goes, "Wait, what? You're on the city council?" She had no. It was pretty funny. She's like, "How long have you been on the city council?" I'm like, "Oh, a year." She's like, "No way." To be a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
it was good. They actually had some really good questions, and a few of them, I mean, Krista and I were like, "Ooh, actually, that's a really good one." So sometimes we're like, "Woohoo!"
There he is.
Mm-hmm.
I got 2 minutes.
I'm going to give you a ring light, Pat, so we can see your face. So be a little more brighter for you.
Hold on, I can fix that. Oh, my mouse isn't working that good.
We should just get a flashlight like the freaky movies and put it underneath your chin. There you go.
He can be the leprechaun. He can be the leprechaun.
I can just be a voice, right? You don't have to see me turn purple technically at meetings if I just leave my camera.
Tim, your wife has to come back. I need to work with her on Ryla and some other stuff for the graduation committee. Everybody keeps saying that's Cindy's job. You're muted, Tim.
Good evening, everybody.
Hey, John.
James just texted me and said his computer is being slow, but he will be on as soon as possible.
I know that feeling.
Your grandkid come yet, Tim?
Oh, you're muted, Tim.
Hey, Sheila.
Okay.
Okay,
Well-
I'll start the recording real quick.
Yeah, 2 minutes went by pretty fast.
This conference will now be recorded.
Ready.
Okay, so we are going to open up this February 17th meeting of the City of Port Orford Common Council at 5:30. Starting the agenda here, call to order. Got myself, Greg Heidi, Carolyn LaRoche, Lauren Kessler, Gary Burns, and Tim Pogwitz for councilors, with James calling in and saying he will be here soon. And then for staff, we have Jessica Ginsburg and John Isidore, as well as council Shayla Kudlett. The agenda, I don't have any, but I am going to go ahead and drop 8C off the agenda, the water conservation rates. This agenda is pretty full, and that's something we can, I can get a little more information with Jessica before we have a conversation. Sorry about that, Jessica. I was looking at the agenda today, and that was one thing that could fall out there without losing too much steam. Any other additions to the agenda from anyone? Okay, then we'll go ahead and move on to our presentation from Redfish Rocks. Go ahead and start that whenever you'd like. Assuming Tara or Tom.
Tara, do you need me to share my screen? I'm going to make you the presenter so you can go ahead and share your screen if you wanted to, okay?
Okay, sure. Are we just going right from the beginning?
Yeah, for your PowerPoint presentation, yeah. Okay, you're ready to go whenever you want to share it.
Sure.
You can start however you'd like, though. You can start however you'd like. Introduction, all that good stuff.
Sure. Ready to share our screen whenever?
That's okay. If it's clean.
You're the presenter, Tara, so you can go ahead and share it.
Okay, let me see.
Did you get a good deal? Oh.
John, mute yourself. Everyone mute themselves.
Got a good deal.
Well, sorry, it's making me open my system's preferences. Do that jazz.
Totally understood.
Okay, come on. Okay. We're done. Restart GoToMeeting.
This is when computers are the most fun, is when you're in Zoom meetings.
I know, they're the worst. For some reason, it's not letting me.
Everyone has a copy of the presentation in their packet, so it's up to you, kind of. Is
Okay.
So
Let's see. Yeah, I don't want to keep you guys waiting too long here. Accessibility. Yeah.
Tara, Tom here. Can you hear me?
Hey, Tom. How's it going? Yeah, I can hear you.
If you want, we could try, if you want to try to email it to me, I could try to open it at my end and share my screen while you speak, just as a workaround if you're not able to get it to work.
Sure. Yeah, it's for some reason I'm in my accessibility and my privacy, preferences, and it's not allowing me to select anything. But yeah, if you want to try that, would that be okay, Jessica?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll
Give it
just
a
switch
shot
the
anyway.
presenter to Tom if you want to try it.
Sure, yeah. Hopefully, Tom, you have better luck.
We can try. In the meantime, I would just like to let everyone know it's been great having Tara aboard as the coordinator for the Redfish Rocks community team. She's done some great work in our community, and I can't wait for her to share it with you. If we can solve our technical difficulties, and even if we can't, I'm sure she can share it with you. Okay, I'm going to give this a shot.
Oh, and just for the record, James Garrett is here in attendance now. I
Okay,
think
Tom, I moved it.
Well, Tara, I'm sorry to say that I'm having the same problem that you had.
Okay, well, that's quite all right. I can just go for it. You can follow along on the agenda. All right.
I'll try. Hang on, I might have a solution here. Let's give it a shot. It's going to make me restart, so if I disappear and reappear, that's why. So we'll try this one more time and then we'll quit. Jessica, are you able to let me share my screen?
I already did it, so you're ready whenever you are. I made you the presenter.
Okay. I'm going to try to leave and come back.
Do we want to go ahead and approve these minutes while we're rating? Give them a couple more minutes and see if we can't knock something off while we're at it.
Yeah, we can go ahead and do.
That sounds good.
Well, I would ask for a motion on the minutes for January 20th.
I'll move to approve the minutes of January 20th, 2022.
Second.
Lauren seconded that, but everybody's muting tonight for some reason.
I second it.
I second that. Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
All right. So any discussion on the minutes? All right. I will call for the vote. Tim?
Tim, yes.
Lauren?
Lauren, yes.
Carolyn?
Carolyn, yes.
James, yes.
Greg?
Greg, yes.
And Gary?
Gary, yes.
Well, I don't want to get into citizens' concerns yet, but we bought him a couple minutes. Any luck, Tom?
I'm going to try one more time.
Okay. And then Tara and Tom, just so you know, you're more than welcome to come back next month with the presentation if you like after we get the kinks out, or we can just go ahead and do it. We do have the packet. I just don't know how much of the community will be able to see it. So totally up to you.
Okay, here we go. I think we solved it.
Yay.
Are you
Yeah, there
seeing
we
my
go.
screen now?
See, I just
Yeah.
had to put them under pressure a little bit.
Perfect.
Okay. So Tara, I'm going to go to slideshow. And then if you just tell me when to advance the slides, I'll do that.
Sounds good. Awesome. Thank you guys for your patience.
Like in the old days.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for your patience and for giving us a couple minutes of your time here. We're just going to tell you a little bit about, obviously you guys are familiar with Redfish Rocks and the community team, but we'll let you guys know what we've been up to and kind of some stuff that we have going on looking forward this year. It is our 10-year anniversary, so we're really excited about that. Next slide, Tom. Right, so a quick global context for marine reserves and marine protected areas. You guys are probably pretty aware of this already, but UN has declared it the decade of ocean science, and we're just becoming more and more aware of how fragile ocean ecosystems are and how little we know to begin with. Currently, less than 3% of the world's oceans are protected, and there's just, again, so much we don't know and so much that can be studied that we want to study while we can, while it's still out there. All right, next. So why are marine reserves important? Marine reserves are living laboratories. So they're areas where scientists can get together and record, make these studies that are so important to understand how these ecosystems function and how they're changing over time. They're also a long-term investment in a more sustainable future for local fisheries, right? So we want to protect these areas in order for fish populations to rebound for future generations and to continue using these resources as we have. They also boost tourism. Tourists love to know, especially in beautiful places like Port Orford, that measures are being taken to preserve the natural splendor of the area. So love that. And connectivity is another reason to have marine reserves, both for, I think, humans and for animals. Scientists gather in marine reserves. We have this hub for research, which increases collaboration, just increases our knowledge of marine reserves. But I think connectivity also can refer to fish. Tom, you might know a little bit more about this than I do. I think we've mentioned that, we are monitoring the movements of these fish throughout this network of marine reserves, and we can often watch species as they're moving, along the coast, which gives us more information about just the movements of these animals and the lives that they lead. Next.
Yeah, and Tara, if I can just chime in there for 1 second. Another way to think about connectivity is that the old female rockfish that are protected in the marine reserve produce many more offspring than their younger counterparts, and those larvae are dispersed throughout the area, including areas that are fished, so they can actually help increase the numbers of fish in fished areas.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tom. All right, next slide. All right, so there are 5 marine reserves in Oregon, and we are the southernmost. You guys, again, I'm probably aware of that. So we've got Cape Falcon, Cascade Head, Otter Rock, Cape Perpetua, and last but not least, Redfish Rocks right here, just south of Port Orford. Next. Again, pretty familiar territory here. We are just south of the town of Port Orford, between Humbug Mountain and the city, or the town. Monitoring began in 2010 and take restrictions began in 2012, so 10 years ago. And as you can see on the map, we are a marine reserve and a larger marine protected area, which has slightly different take restrictions around fishing. All right. The community team, so Redfish Rocks community team, when you hear that entity, we are a community group around Redfish Rocks Marine Reserve, and our goal is to increase the awareness and promote the success of the Marine Reserve. We are a coalition of scientists, fishermen, business owners, educators, and volunteers. And again, we have the mission of supporting the Redfish Rocks Marine Reserve through education, interpretation, and marine stewardship opportunities. Next. So community engagement is a big part of what I do in the community as outreach coordinator. So we've kind of divided those into 3 different buckets here. We've got interpretation, education, and citizen science. So some of our interpretation programs that we've run in the past is a volunteer interpretation program out of the Port Orford Visitor Center called the Redfish Rangers. They would be out there on weekends informing the public about, the marine science in the area, the underwater world, and the Redfish Rocks Marine Reserve. We also have a walking tour, which we designed during the pandemic to get people outside and interacting with the Marine Reserve, which you can download the app Junket Explore Your World and check that out at any time. And we are about to hopefully install a touchscreen in the Port Orford Visitor Center, which will be an interpretive touchscreen, which will have information about the reserve and different species that you can find in our ecosystem here, which is great for informing the public about what is out there. Education is another big component of what we do. Especially this year, we're focusing on kind of bringing future stewards of Redfish Rocks through the school system, educating them about marine science that's happening out there. So we want to interact more with the public school system as well as the local library summer programs. And we also host family-friendly events such as Redfish Rocks on the Docks. And that will be happening again this summer, which is big news since, fingers crossed, pandemic. Citizen science is another big part of what we do. So we allow our volunteers to kind of get their hands wet and get outdoors and help scientists understand, get a better picture of the ecology of this area. So one thing that we do every summer is a BioBlitz, which is an ecological snapshot of the biodiversity of the area. And we do this through an app called iNaturalist, which is connected to a network of scientists. So we're trying to connect the observations that our volunteers make with scientists who can then take that data and draw conclusions from that. We also do coastal bird monitoring surveys. We work with Coast Watch, and PISCO is another organization that does intertidal monitoring that use volunteers. I think that's going to cover this slide next. We also take pride in shining a spotlight on coastal livelihoods. We are really grateful to the Port Orford community for giving the Redfish Rocks Marine Reserve a home, and we couldn't have done it without our kind of fishing fleet and the rest of the community. So we like to try our best to give back to the community, and we do so through a variety of ways, including fishing boat tours during Redfish Rocks on the Docks, which allows the public to kind of pay a fisherman to dock his boat and let people on and become more aware of what it's like to be a fisherman in Port Orford. We also do Redfish Rocks on the Dock, which is a fun summer gathering where we get scientists, nonprofits, the public, the fishing community all together around some music and food and have a big fun time and hopefully learn some stuff about the marine ecology of the area. We are just releasing a video series featuring Aaron Longton about fishing in Port Orford. We just released our introductory video, which you can find on our YouTube page, also on Facebook and Instagram. And that's just, again, shining a spotlight on what it's like to live in this area and what makes fishing in Port Orford sustainable and different. And our junket tour, as I mentioned, that's the walking tour that you can access through a cell phone application. And that features the voices of, many different stakeholders in our community, from the tribal perspective to scientists, biologists, business owners, recreational users, and of course, local Port Orford fishermen. So we try and when we say that we're a community organization, we try and include many different facets of our community. Next. And of course, having the Marine Reserve here is super important for the marine science that takes place at the Marine Reserve. We have ecological monitoring that is happening out there, as well as human dimensions research. So it's important to consider the community in which marine reserves exist and how that community interacts with those marine reserves. And we have a strong connection with the Oregon State University through the OSU Field Station. And that is just a super connective area for scientists to come to study everything from plankton to gray whales and everything in between. Some of the entities that come through are Peace So again, that's the Partnership for Interdisciplinary Studies of Coastal Ocean, and they monitor intertidal organisms, and they were one of the first groups to note the sea star wasting disease in 2013. So it's important to have people monitoring what's going on out there so we can understand kind of what's coming down the pike as well. Fish recruitment surveys also happen out there. Acoustic telemetry, which Tom is an expert on, which monitor the movements of fish at the reserve, as well as ocean acidification monitoring. And I mean, I'm sure, Tom, you might have more to add for this slide. This is kind of your forte.
In the interest of time, I'm going to save it for Q&A if there is any, but thanks. So you covered a good amount there.
Good.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions?
All good. We've got a few more slides.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, you're good. You're good. Appreciate you and your time. So yeah, just wanted to let you guys know one more time. This year is our 10-year anniversary, and we're developing kind of our programming this year around that messaging. We're really excited that we've been here in this community for this 10 years, and we're really proud of what we've accomplished so far. But we also understand that 10 years in geological time is not a huge amount of time to see, huge results. So we want to look forward at kind of what we're thinking in terms of the future for marine stewardship in Oregon. Our forward slide. With an ever-changing climate, it is more important than ever to understand marine ecosystems. So we think that we are just as relevant now as we were 10 years ago. Done a lot of work in the community in that 10 years. And our goal moving forward is to inspire the next generation of ocean stewards, just because we understand that it's such a pristine area. We're so proud of, the ocean that we have and the environment that we have. And we want to preserve that for future generations in order for them to thrive here as well. So we want to include that future generation now in what we're doing. And ways to get involved, I kind of brushed over them already, but we have plenty of volunteer opportunities, especially in the summertime, including our annual BioBlitz. We have, volunteers go down and make hundreds of observations in the intertidal area. So it's like tide pooling for science. You can also take our junket tour. It's not so much volunteering, but it's fun and informative. Our coastal bird monitoring is something that we do in the spring and summer. And getting involved in youth outreach or volunteer interpretation. Those will also be things that will be kicking off closer to the summertime, I believe. And contact us or like and follow on the socials. And that kind of concludes my presentation here. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to take them now.
Anyone? Well, we sure thank you for the presentation. We're definitely not trying to rush out of here, but we did lose a few minutes and we have a giant agenda in front of us. But
sorry about that technological details.
We all know the world we're living in and how Murphy fully applies to Zoom and GoToMeeting. GoToMeeting a little more, but it seems like it applies to both. So no questions for Tara or Tom?
Thank you Tom, so much. It's great having that going on here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. And just so I don't forget, this made me realize that we're going to be going for funding. The port goes for funding. We have so many groups that have community outreach needs. So maybe we should look into that Chamber of Commerce building there for outreach, for all the stuff we have going on. And it will be a tool for funding as well for everybody that we can check off our list of we are as transparent as we can be. We're getting the information out and everybody in the community can use it. Be a nice home for that community calendar too. But we'll move on. I just wanted to throw that out because I have a tendency to forget. Thank you for the presentation, and we're moving on to citizen concerns. Please speak only on old or new business items and limit your time to 3 minutes. Okay, I told myself I wasn't going to ask too many times for comments here.
I'd like to say,
Go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Cox, City Council members, Jessica and John. I just want to thank you all for the time you give the city, and you make us our city very special. And I'll be very brief. I would like to speak to the issue of short-term rentals, particularly in residential zones where there's my understanding at this time they're not permitted by our code. The issue of STRs is very complex, and failure to get ahead of problems generated by proliferation of STRs is vital to maintaining our healthy neighborhoods as well as our city. I live near vacation rentals, and I've had wonderful experiences and a couple of very unpleasant ones. The STR is not a residential use, but rather a tourist business. And for instance, long-term rentals and residential care homes in residential areas are the primary residences of the occupants, whereas STRs are not. And it's my understanding that although we've issued licenses and we've taken money from people, that does not mean that the STRs are currently legal at this time. So what I really want to do is encourage the City Council to allow the Planning Commission to complete the task of developing a well-reasoned ordinance and not make any changes or authorizations until the Planning Commission has the process is finalized. And again, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, moving on then. Departmental reports for tonight. We have the commission president for the port, so that'll eat up a little bit of time. So we'll all try to be as brief as possible. I won't be talking for the port, so that'll shorten things up a bit. But starting with Public Works, John, what do you got for us?
Busy month. Busy month. I don't really have a lot. You guys have seen the report, so I'm not going to beat it up too bad. We still got a bunch of stuff pending. We're waiting on parts. It's just a nightmare to get anything. It's taken 4 and 5 and 6 months to get stuff. So you can see what's pending and what we've done. The biggest thing I'll mention is on the wastewater side, we had a complete failure on the Arizona lift station. And you know, its environmental impact is huge because it's directly across McGarrison Lake. So we met with Billiter Marine, I don't know, this week sometime, and we've got some estimates back. And to do a temporary repair, we were probably in the $10,000 to $15,000 range to get it sealed back up. Right now, we're not leaking on the ground or into the lake or anything like that, but the pressure line is blown apart and cracked, and it's on the bottom side of the station. So the station's going to have to get shut down, disconnected, lifted up about 8 feet, piping done, sat back in place. As you know, it's I think it's the oldest station, if not the second. I don't remember seeing that. I can't remember right now. But so we're going to do a T&M contract with them to get an emergency temporary repair on the station. And then I'm working with Smith and Loveless for a retrofit for a direct replacement station that will pull that one out, sit a new one in. That is 14 to 16 weeks out. They're working on a quote now. I don't know the cost, but if I was going to hazard a guess, I would say it was in the 150 range. I don't know. It's just got to be done. And so that's kind of where we're at on wastewater. We got the Muffin Monster in, and we're getting ready to put it in place hopefully tomorrow. If everything goes well. We got the mixer put back online and did a bunch of fixes down there. So we're progressively moving forward. Dam, I guess you guys are going to see Jessica. I'll let her share that. That repair is going to help, and it's in the future, near future, once it's approved and stuff. So between it and the dredging permit, I guess, is kind of like my highest priority. I really think that we need to get that place dredged out, and we need to recover that that quantity of water that we don't have for summertime. And I think that's really going to help us for this dry, hot summer that's coming. But we're out there fighting the fight, doing what we can.
Thank you, John. Go ahead, Gary.
Thank you, John.
I had a quick question about if we'd ended up with not much rain. I'm sure we're going to get more, but if we didn't, would there be a way of getting Garrison Lake water into the plant? Does that make sense to even be thinking about that?
No, not unless it's a direct emergency only type of deal, because it's pretty much non-potable at that point because of the contamination, snails and stuff. So I am working with the state's water rights people on those 2 permits just to retain them in case we need them, but I haven't had any feedback or emails back from them, so I'm kind of in limbo on those 2 water rights. But I mean, if it really went bad and we had to flip over and just produce water for toilet flushing, that would be an option with some creative thinking on how we get the water from Garrison Lake to the plant.
We might have to buddy up with the fire department for that big old trailer suction pump they have or something.
Right.
But it is an option, if there was, not that we want to think, but if there's a big fire, technically they could probably hook that up to the water system. It's not like we have the fittings sitting on the shelf, but who knows? We could talk about that one for a while.
Yeah. Well, I was just curious if there were things that we could be prepared for now, like if it were to take 3 months to get the right part to be able to do that, would it be, or 6 months, or would it be good to just throwing that out to ponder it anyway, because we don't know, we may not get any rain. That would be a lot different than last summer. We'd have less water.
Well, we had a lot less rain in January than we normally do too. So I was quite surprised. We did have a drop in the water table at Hubbard's, and that's probably be discussed at a later date. But we are seeing the influx of not having rain this month for sure. But
you really got to put in perspective that impoundment and how shallow and wide it is, and how much this siltation is just killing us. It's like our bucket can only get full halfway. So, like John said, that's the thing to figure out. And we're kind of have our hands tied, don't we, John, as far as this much yardage and when we can do it. Like the yardage to me is the one thing. It sure would be nice if we could get bumped up from an emergency thing. Or
yeah, and I think Jessica is working with Corps and Military Marine. They're going to help us if they can, because they know the people to get the permits pushed through. But we've got to increase it, because I would hazard a guess we've lost 2/3 of our storage in Hubbard's from looking at the sediment buildup.
We talked, John and I had a conversation with Military Marine. It was actually yesterday. And that I don't remember the name, John, of who we met with. I'll have to think about that if you do. But he has gone. I'm sorry?
Jeff Brown, maybe?
I didn't hear you.
Jeff.
Oh.
Yeah, it was Jeff.
Yeah. So he actually works and knows a lot of the people at the Army Corps of Engineers that can help push through dredging permits. So I told him I would send him everything as we go through. He knew exactly what I was talking about. And I had told him, like, the person who was working on our stuff had passed away. And then he knows the person that was also handed off to, and I think we said she was given 6 or 7 counties. So all we are is a number at that point. And then we also did talk about dredge now, forgiveness later type of thing. And the city doesn't have any consequences, which is amazing. But the contractor who dredges does, and could be going for somewhere else with an orange jumpsuit if that is the case. So that's an issue with that, but we are working on it with him at Builder Marine. Hopefully he says he has some contacts and he'll push for the dredging at least.
I'll do like a year if it'll save the city a bunch of money. Okay, moving on. Any other questions for John? Thank you, John. That's like you and Jessica are the pros at juggling things for the city, and knowing our priorities is key. Since we have like 10 of them.
Well, they keep changing too. That doesn't help things.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, John. All right, Jessica, what do you got for us?
Well, I think you guys obviously can see all my administrative reports on here. So, kind of a fun thing that we had obviously was a field trip with the fifth graders. Both John and I had them for multiple weeks, for the last 4 weeks, actually, every Thursday afternoon. So today was the last one. They were in City Hall. They loved sitting in council chambers and all those comfy chairs. That was kind of like their favorite thing towards the end. Was doing that, but so they came in, they learned a lot of good stuff, which is really good. And then just still plugging through. Obviously, there's been a lot of movement with John and I trying to do the water funding and everything that's been going on between that, the gas tax, the other water infrastructure stuff that we'll talk about, on top of trying to get quotes to the buildings. The main thing I think John and I have talked about are also the buildings that we have within the city. You know, some of them do need some major repairs. Caller number 3, mute your caller. I will go ahead and do it. Okay. There we go. So that's another thing that we'll talk about probably in the next few meetings as John and I are getting some of the quotes, because one of the storms did a good ported damage to the wastewater plant that we're probably going to need to have fixed too. So we just need to get some of those other things in order too. And the biggest thing I think, well, not the biggest thing, but a fun thing is that, you know, with the amount of money that we've been saving by doing really good cash management, you guys will see, I think and now it's actually even higher than what I have in here. So we haven't had to dip into those other LGIP funds, which are the government funds we receive for property taxes and stuff. We're just kind of using those if we need them for water or anything like that. So we've just been able to thrive off of the monthly funds, which has been really nice. So that'll help us in the long run too.
Awesome. Any questions for Jessica on the report or on the finance? Which for some reason made a lot more sense this month. Like, did you add a column or something? Or like, because I feel, I don't know, regardless of what it was, I understood it better this month. So thank you.
And we're still looking for that open position too. So if anyone knows, it's still open.
Yeah, boy.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure that'll come in next week.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so moving on to planning.
So I think, well, yeah, I'm obviously on the planning now. So we talked about some ways in the residential zones that planning and can discuss how it can be handled. There was one thing which we'll talk about towards the end about the vacation rentals. So we'll deal with that later, but Krista and I actually are almost done with the survey that we're going to hand out to everyone, so the citizens have access to, and what they would like to see in the zones, in the residential zones in particular. And then there's also a checklist that 2 other commissioners are working on to kind of create a business license packet for vacation rentals, so that we can all have a little bit more stringent regulations with regards to them. So I got a draft late today, actually, for their first one. So I'm sure I'll see it more later and go through it, and then I can send it to you guys. We just had 2 building permit applications, nothing too huge, just normal houses, nothing too interesting from there on that aspect. So hopefully we can get through planning a little bit and get through some of that stuff too.
Awesome.
And that's about it.
Gary?
And I just wanted to bring up creating a process to add to the permit process that all the permits would come back to the city as the final step. And I don't know if we need a motion for that but
the building permits?
Right. So they come to the city, they get approved, then they go to the county, and then the applicant just gets it and they go for it. I feel that one last check on our part would make sure that no changes were made at the county level that we weren't aware of. It's been talked about before.
Yeah, we've talked about it where we just have the last say, the final check in the box after it goes through the county, so that when the end product is the same as the starting proposal is the same as the end project until they get their certificate of occupancy or whatever that situation is. And Gary, I wonder if we should, by consensus, maybe ask Jessica to research that with Shayla and find the legality of it and how we would do that. And then next meeting, we can just make the decision on it. You know, and it will slow us down, but we're just getting the information. She'll say we can do this, and then we'll say, yes, we can do that, or we can't, which hopefully we can. Is everybody okay with that? Okay.
Perfect.
Okay. I'll go ahead and do that. Mm-hmm.
Oh, and so planning, when we have tackled big projects like this in the past, like this vacation rental thing, for instance, we have let planning work on it for years, and we never really communicated in the meantime. And there's been some issues where it seems like if we touch bases along the way, it would save the council months and months of trying to reinvent things or do things after planning does all that work. So I'm just throwing that out there. Think about ideas to remedy it, and we will move on to our liaison reports. Can you mute call it for?
Yeah.
Thank you. How do I get to do that? I want to do that. Sorry. All right, James, do you have anything from the fire district for us this month?
No, I don't.
Okay. Still the same status on volunteers, pretty much?
Yeah, and actually on that note, it looks like we may be losing one or two of our most senior personnel next month due to job situations and moving away. So actually, I'm glad that you mentioned that, because if anything, the volunteer situation is just going to get more dire. It's important that people join up now if they want, so that they can learn what they can from the more experienced veterans before they disappear.
Thank you, James. All right, Tim, anything from TLT?
TLT is ongoing. I spoke with Jessica the other day. I believe we have one application in, and we're waiting for the rest of them so we can start the meetings. So that's all I have on TLT.
Awesome. That's how it works around here. Talk, and then a meeting, something happens. All right. Caroline, do you have anything from the watershed?
No, we didn't have a meeting this month.
Okay. Thank you. Gary, health.
Nothing on health.
Do you want me to just, why I have you here, to hit you up for emergency management or Main Street?
We can do Main Street. Main Street's still working on the dining arts and service guide. And they're shooting for a May print on that. So those will be available in the vacation rentals and motel rooms and the businesses for handing out. They're developing their list of projects coming up this year. Not a nautical themed bike racks throughout the town for the tourists and locals is being worked on. They're working on trying to figure out a child care facility. Bandon has gotten help from Wild Rivers Coast Alliance on theirs, and so they're seeing if they could do something with that. They're going to work with ODOT to see if they can do pavers in the crosswalks when they do the project this summer. And they had an idea of putting agates in some of the in the curbing. Some towns have put marbles in, but agates could be kind of fun, and somebody was there to put them in at the right time. They're planning on planting some trees along the Driftwood Elementary School, where they moved the fence back 4 or 5 feet and then put the trees in between the fence and the road. And they're going to work on creating a pavilion for the kids' bikes. So when the weather's bad, the bikes will be protected. They're working on an office at the visitor center in conjunction with Redfish Rocks and Kelly Bechtel, the visitor center. And they're still looking for more ideas for projects for this summer. So if anybody's got ideas out there for Main Street, now would be a great time you can feed them through me and get them to Susan Russell with Main Street.
Awesome. Thank you, Gary. All right. This will be a good one. I don't have to give it. So our next is our port liaison report, and Commission President Leela Thompson from the port will be giving it.
Good evening, council members and Mayor Cox. I am sharing with you this evening a new resolution that the commission approved in January. It is related to the city in many ways, and I'm just going to go ahead and read it so that you can kind of see where the city is in it and also how this area is affected by this resolution. So this is the resolution 2022-01. And it is for the board, a resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the Port Orford District, resolved by the Board of Commissioners of the district. Whereas the economic activity of the district comprises 30% of the workforce of Port Orford, and whereas the majority of this economic activity is driven by commercial seafood harvest and processing. And whereas commercial seafood harvest is dependent on both the health of the ecosystem found in the commercial fishing grounds of the region and access to these resources. And whereas in 2012, the city of Port Orford recognized the Port Orford Community Stewardship Area through Ordinance 2012-04, which states, the Port Orford Community Stewardship Area is biologically diverse and encompasses terrestrial, freshwater, intertidal, and ocean environments. The stewardship area is 1,320 square miles and includes 385 square miles of terrestrial habitat and 935 square miles of ocean habitat. And the city of Port Orford recognizes the Port Orford Community Stewardship Area because activities that take place therein have an impact on the economy and natural resource base of the city. And whereas the district is engaged in marine stewardship through the support of collaborative ocean research and support for the nearby Redfish Rocks Marine Reserve and Marine Protected Area. And whereas the district supports workforce development initiatives dependent upon the health of the living resources found in the surrounding oceans. And whereas for these reasons, the district supports the development of offshore wind facilities outside of the traditional fishing grounds of the Port Orford fleet. And now, therefore, the district resolves as follows. The district supports the reduction of carbon emissions through the development of clean energy alternatives. The district opposes the development of offshore wind projects inside the Port Orford Stewardship Area and a surrounding 25-mile buffer zone. The district requests a meeting with DLCD and BOEM to discuss implementation details of this resolution. This resolution is hereby adopted and approved by the Board of Directors of the Port Orford District, and the FERC is hereby requested not to sell wind energy lease holdings within the Port Orford Stewardship Area and a surrounding 25-mile buffer zone. Passed and adopted by the Board of Directors as a resolution of the Port Orford District at a regular board meeting held on the 18th day of January 2022. I know that was long, and but it was essential that we brought that to your attention. This is currently being sent out to stakeholders, other parties that are connected to this. But what we're essentially saying is that as the search for clean energy continues. We have made it clear that we are protecting our waters here in this specific area. And actually, thanks to the city of Port Orford for recognizing the stewardship. That's helped immensely. I will take some questions because that was quite a lot.
Any questions for President Thompson?
Anything to clarify?
Well, I will have the port manager, if I can talk him into it, send that out tomorrow, because this could be very pertinent for us, you know, if whatever you choose. I just have to kind of stay out of it. I will present you the information, but obviously the proximity that I thought would never happen is there now. So just throwing that out there. Go ahead, Lynn, sorry.
Fox, I just wanted to add that it has taken quite a bit of effort on the commission's part through various means to come to this resolution. And Commissioner Ashdown has spent quite a bit of research and education, webinar time, article work in bringing forward the information that BOEM is bringing out. BOEM is Bureau of Ocean Energy Management, and they are actively right now seeking places to install offshore wind energy in Oregon. They're active. That does not mean that it is hypothetical. They're truly finding areas. They're called call areas to make these facilities, and that would be in our ocean waters. This is a federal, state, local situation, and there are quite a few meetings coming up within February, March. They're just rolling right out. They have met with various stakeholders, but we did have a presentation from BOEM describing what this would look like, how it affects the economy, the environment, our marine waters. That's redundant, our marine zone. So it is real, I would just say. Offshore wind energy is a really, truly developing thing. So this is what the port has come up with, because we are very windy. Cape Blanco registers as one of the windiest areas on the United States coast, right? And we are in the paperwork. We're in the information when we're talking about call areas and information about offshore wind energy. Cape Blanco is stated. So that's why this was so important for us to make sure we provided this resolution. And as Commissioner Ashdown just chatted in, we can provide information. We have lots of resources. And the manager of the port also does. So you can speak with Manager Cox on this. And if you have more questions, but you can also email Aaron. He put his email in the chat. You can reach out to him. But this is actively happening now. So we wanted you to be part of it, and you to understand where we're at.
Thank you.
Now, is there something that the city can do to help back the port up? Just city council?
I believe you could also have a statement. I don't know if
we could do the same thing.
Right.
We could have a resolution directly to BOEM in support of it, or whatever the city chooses to do. Yes.
Right. And I think because the city has already made this area a stewardship area, that's actually the jump off point. It was great. We could reference the Port Orford Community Stewardship Area that was designated by the city of Port Orford. So that's your jumping off point as well. So you can go ahead and bring that to your attention at a later time now that you've been informed. And yeah, feel free to reach out if you need to.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Leila.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, and that information, literally just type in capital BOEM and you'll get everything you need to know. They're Boehm, Oregon, if you want to narrow it down. And there's tons of information. And like Leila said, the meetings are happening now. So we'll move on to parks.
The Parks Department is moving along. We have over $25,000 raised in our playground fund by Parks Commissioner Sierra Frazier. Awesome job. And I met with Disc Golf today to go over the design, and that's moving forward. Hopefully we can get that in before the summertime. And the A-frame is all cleaned out, and we're going to get that moving into March with the Parks Department taking it back over. It's all cleaned out, so we appreciate the Arts Department getting that done for us. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Greg. All right, and then last but not least, we have the school district with Lauren. You're muted. You're muted.
All right. I'm going to be very brief because Jessica took a lot of my thunder with the kids who had a wonderful time, and they love it. And as you saw, if you got a packet or not, they actually wrote letters in cursive, which I thought was pretty impressive. Yes. That's really all I'm going to dwell on this time. We haven't had a meeting yet this month, so I don't have any updates. So carry on back to you, Mayor Cox.
All right.
I've got a little something on emergency.
Perfect.
I wanted to know what kind of process we would have to start looking into using the Cedar Terrace Fire Station for some emergency caches. I'd like to just get that ball rolling and see if it's even possible. But from my perspective, it looks like there's room up there, and it would be out of the tsunami zone, and we'd have some supplies. James, I got something on that.
Yeah, in regards to that, you would need to open up negotiations with the fire department board, being that building is leased to them. So before you put too much energy into it, I would approach them and see if they're interested in partnering on that and making something like that happen.
So do we need a consensus of the council, or do we?
No, it's a good question. Like, you're gathering information, so that should be fine. You're not going to be taking action without coming back to the council. But just to make it clean and sweet, can I get a consensus for Gary to pursue that process?
Yes.
Lawrence, good. Carolyn's shaking her head. Greg's just staring. He might be frozen.
I think he's frozen.
Consensus anyway. So thank you, Gary, and that would be a good first step.
Excellent. So I would just get with them and go to a board meeting maybe, or just reach out to...
I would reach out to them and see if you can be put on as an agenda item on a board meeting and then attend. That way you can address them.
Perfect.
And it's always, when you do email them, kind of tell them what you're doing so you're not cold calling them in the meeting. Or what you're proposing. Thank you, Gary. Was that it for you on emergency management?
I did want to work on getting more tsunami signs out, and I was wondering how we would go about that, funding it, and if we could just figure out a plan and just put the signs up. I don't know what the process is for that.
That was discussed when with the National Hazard Mitigation Plan, right, Jessica? Or, I mean, it was part of the ports process, so I imagine it's on the map for the city as well.
It is, and I actually see that Monica's on here. on the meeting right now, so it looks like that, yes, it was discussed, and I know that we can probably just get some from them too. But I can follow up with Monica in the next few days and see what she can do.
It seems like it'd be good to have, I don't know how many, but it'd be good to have multiple signs around that people, it's just in their minds and the different places that they would be going, depending on what part of town they're in. And it just keeps it fresh in people's minds so that it's not as spooky as it will be when the time comes. Super, thank you.
Okay, let's see. We got 6:30, so it gives us an hour and a half to go. We're okay. We're nice. So we're going on to 7A, old business, the first reading of
That's frozen.
Pat's frozen.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it looks like he came back on. There he is.
Okay, so can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Shayla, I can just read this by title, yes? If,
So long as no one requests it to be read in full, you can read it just in title.
Okay.
But remember, if you wish to adopt it as an emergency ordinance, you need to set that out as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Which is what we talked about doing.
Right. And so how do I establish that, I guess, would be the question. I am reading emergency ordinance 2022-04 by title.
I think you need someone to make a motion.
I wrote the motions on here for the three different scenarios. So that, so we need the first motion to either pass it in one night and or go from there.
Okay. So I'm looking for a motion.
I make a motion that the council adopt the water curtailment ordinance 2022-04 and approve the first reading by title only.
Okay. Go ahead and read that last little bit there, Lauren.
Yeah. Need to finish the sentence.
Oh, I thought I did that.
No, you stopped at title only, and we need the to take effect part.
Oh, okay. I see what it says. I make a motion that City Council adopt the waste curtailment ordinance 2022-04 and approve the first and second reading by title only as an emergency to take effect February 18th, 2022. Sorry about that.
I'll second that.
Did I hear him say waste? I think he meant water.
Did I say? I said water curtailment.
Correct. Well, we'll accept correction is water. Okay, good.
Okay, yeah, correction is water.
Okay, so the motion on the table is to adopt the water curtailment ordinance 2022-04 and approve the first and second readings by title only as emergency to take effect February 18th, 2022, and is seconded by Gary. So I will call for the vote. Greg?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Carolyn, yes.
Lauren?
Lauren, yes.
Tim? I read his lips, but go ahead.
Tim, yes.
All right, and James?
James, yes.
Gary, did I ask you? Okay.
Gary, yes.
Thank you. All right, so we will be moving on to reading this by title. Does that include definitions, Shayla?
No.
Good. All right. So I'm reading ordinance number 2022-04, an emergency ordinance of the Common Council of the City of Port Orford. Common Council of the City of Port Orford hereby ordains that the following ordinances 2022-04 be adopted for water curtailment. So we've got our chapters for the first section, and then our purpose, declaring the shortage of emergency conditions, our definitions, our levels of concern for 1305.050, our regulation of water usage during level of concern conditions, which is 1305.060, And for 1305-070 pertains to our non-essential residential water use. 1305.080, non-essential commercial or industrial use. 090, gutter flooding. 100, regulation of applications for new water services. 110 is the penalty section. 120 is for the variances. Okay, and there you have your first reading. Now I need a motion for a second reading, Shayla, or we're good because we just moved.
Make a motion for a second reading, and then once you do your second reading, make a motion for adoption.
Thank you. All right. So I will need that motion for a second reading if anyone chooses.
I make a motion to proceed with the second reading for the council to adopt water curtailment ordinance 2022-04 and approve the first and second readings by title only and emergency to take effect February 18, 2022. And I did say water this time.
Yeah, that was a nice clean motion, Lauren. That was the best motion we've had in a while. I need a second for it to be a motion.
I second it.
Okay. Kind of feel repetitive, but I'm going to go ahead and read the second reading of ordinance 2022-04. The Common Council of the City of Port Orford. The Common Council of the City of Port Orford hereby ordains the following ordinance 2022-04 be adopted for water curtailment. Chapter 1305 is the sections. 1305.020 is the purpose for this ordinance. 1305.030 is the definitions for this ordinance. 1305.040 is the application and procedure. 1305.050 is the levels of concern. 1305.060 is the regulation of water usage during level of concern conditions. 1305.070, non-essential residential water use. 1305.080, non-essential commercial or industrial use. 1305.090, gutter flooding. 1305.100, regulation of applications for new water services. 1305.110 is the penalty section. 1305.120 is the variances. And that concludes the second reading of 2022-04. Now I will require another motion for adopting ordinance 2022-04.
You're muted, Lauren.
I make a motion that we vote to adopt ordinance number 2022-04.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion? I didn't think so. James?
Is that as an emergency to take effect today or tomorrow?
Yes, it is. So I'm sorry. I thought we covered that in the first couple, but do you mind repeating enough, Shayla, or would you like another motion?
Just this point of clarification, if you intend for it to take effect immediately.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Okay, good. So now I can call for the question. James?
James, yes.
Tim?
Tim, yes.
Gary?
Gary, yes.
Greg?
Greg, yes.
Carolyn?
Carolyn, yes.
And Lauren?
Lauren, yes.
All right. We got through that pretty quick. I mean, that whole curtailment ordinance, I'm not talking about just this, the whole process of it. It's kind of how it's supposed to work. So, nice work, everyone. We're going to go ahead and skip through C, but kind of look into water conservation rates this month. Familiarize yourself with that because it's something we should talk about. And now we're going on to 8D, contract for water assistance provisions.
You missed 7C. You missed 7C.
7D.
We crossed that off.
We're just trying to move this meeting along. You're still up on 7C.
Oh, I'm on old business still?
Yeah, sorry.
Within 2 hours.
Nice try.
Was right on the letter. Okay. So this is an important one. We probably don't want to skip either. 7C Hubbard's Creek repair beds. We have one from Settler Company and we have one from Billeter Marine. So I just need a motion one way or another on one of those proposals so we can start our discussion.
Could we get like a recommendation of which one to pick, like from John and Jessica maybe?
John, John, you and I both have, so I'll let you go first.
Well, obviously the lower cost of the bid, even at their numbers, they included the poly liner. So I'd have to say that the lowest bidder kind of won the bacon on this one. Did discuss with them. There were some changes drawn into the plans by Civil West, and they were more than amenable to make the changes for free. So I would say Billeter pretty much was the best bidder.
And we are supposed to have 3 quotes according to our purchase policy. We have had a lot of problems even just getting 2, but there is also a portion of purchase policy that discusses if it's an emergency, we do not necessarily need 3 quotes. And so we figured, since it took us this long to get the 2, that this did still constitute as an emergency to just try to get it through. So
You concur with that, Shayla? It makes sense, but that doesn't mean it's legal.
Did only two bids come in during the time frame, Jessica?
Yes.
Well, we can't make people bid, so that's appropriate.
And I think the bids, everything has been out since late November for bids. So we're going on 3 months with only 2 bids. We really.
Right.
And it's kind of a sweet little job.
Well, I'll move that the council accept the bid for Billeter Marine LLC for $12,508 to perform the repairs at Hubbard Creek Reservoir.
I'll second that.
Second, any discussion on that? All right, thank you, John and Jessica, for your recommendation. Lauren, I want to call for the vote.
Yes, Lauren, yes.
Carolyn?
Carolyn, yes.
Greg?
Greg, yes.
Gary?
Gary, yes.
Tim?
Tim, yes.
And James?
James, yes.
Okay. Now we're still on old business, D. That's a seasonal gas tax discussion. And the reason that came up is because after the meeting, we had a good suggestion because we had some issues with like the industrial side of it and the card lock and the port, and changing it to ethanol only would alleviate a lot of those issues. So that's kind of where we're having the conversation. We would need a motion to change what we talked about last month. So that's our starting point for this bullet point.
I'll make a motion to approve the change of seasonal motor vehicle fuel tax ordinance to be ethanol-based fuels only.
I second that motion.
Okay. All right, James, this is kind of your baby. What do you think of that new angle?
I think it solves all the dilemmas that we've basically been having. As long as it's legal, which I don't see why it wouldn't be, this seems like a near ideal solution. So absolutely.
Okay, does anybody else have anything they want to add to that conversation? Shayla?
Does this deal with the issue of the port?
Yes,
Selling
because
fuel?
what we sell is diesel and non-ethanol fuel. It deals with everything that we were talking about last meeting.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for the suggestion, Raleigh. Very good.
Thank you.
That was excellent.
Oh, he is here. Good. I assumed. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and call for the vote on that one. Tim?
We're voting to send this to the voters in November, correct?
Yeah,
Correct.
but because of the change to non-ethanol or ethanol only, that we had to go back and change that officially.
Okay, I just want to make it clear that my vote is yes to send it to the voters.
Okay.
Well, are we voting on? We're voting on the amendment right now.
Right, because we did
next time I'll have the resolution
voters last month.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to make it clear that I vote to send it to the voters. I approve the amendment.
Okay. And that, just to clarify, is we are amending it to send it to the voters, and it is their decision.
Correct.
And this,
Thank
we're
you.
sending it now because of the non-ethanol game. So that's a yes from Tim. James.
James, yes.
Lauren.
Lauren, yes.
Carolyn.
Carolyn, yes.
Gary.
Gary, yes.
And Greg.
Yes.
Okay. Moving on to 7E, we have an update on our water infrastructure search from Jessica.
Yes. So I think you guys saw that we did the 750. Unfortunately, we're not a good fit, I guess, for that program, according to what we received back from them. But we're still kind of continuing conversation with that because there's two other ones that we can do throughout the year, in the fall mainly, actually, because that'll help us with the engineering and the planning and all that stuff. So that'll be a good one to go through in the fall. I had a meeting with Representative David Brock Smith along with Mayor Cox, and I talked to him about trying to help us getting some funding and kind of corner him and ask him what he could do. The next day I actually received an email from him with regards to capital funding request form that he asked me to have back by January 24th because he was going to take it to the legislature because there was a short session that they were participating in. So when I did that, I just kind of took the whole first phase one, which is on there like $9.5 million, and just said, okay, let's go for the whole thing. If we get a little, we get a little, we get all of it, we get all of it. Awesome. So I gave that to him, and we're waiting on what is going on with that right now. We haven't gotten an update since that legislature session. And obviously I'm still working. I got an email actually today with regards to, from Monica, with regards to the next, for the next few funding opportunities that we have. So we're going to start to get those together and get that out the door too, for the water infrastructure. There is an email, John, you actually sent it to me at the very end of today that I received about the meters, possibly too, funding that we can receive specifically for meters actually. I think I got it literally right at the end of the day. So I printed it and I was reading it earlier, but I don't know if that's, I don't see John right now, but I don't know if that's something that he wanted to talk about. He kind of just disappeared on me. But that's kind of where we are with the water infrastructure. We're getting there. Actually, I mean, every day it seems like is an additional step in the right direction, if that helps. Does anyone have any other questions or anything that they want to talk about or ask about?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment. Gary has been very diligent trying to find us help for this, trying to find some grant writers and getting people together. And I really appreciate that. And I think we should probably workshop this issue to find out how we're going to, get these volunteers and which way we want to move forward and the process of this grant finding. That we got to make sure that our ducks are in a row as much as possible while we're going for these. We're not learning, what we're missing as we go, which is going to happen. And so that's why we just got to start throwing stuff at the wall until it sticks. And it definitely merits a workshop. So I think, everybody's shaking their head. So I'll talk with Jessica. We'll get some sort of information together. There might be some representative from OAWU who can come down and kind of tell us how the roundtables work. So I just want everyone to know that that's in the queue, because Gary is, he's got 3 liaison reports. He's really trying here, and I want to try to, open that up for him and enable to him and enable us to do it in the right process. So thank you for that.
Can we use some of this $94,000 Jessica's got us to hire a grant writing firm to really do exactly what you're talking about?
Absolutely, and that's what we can start talking about for this budget process. We can either do an amended budget right now, but I think because we're so close to the budget process and Jessica is so overworked right now that it'll just dovetail in through the budget process, because really it's what, 4 months out, Jessica?
Yes. Yep. I've actually was talking about when I was going to start it today.
Yeah. So even if we did it as fast as possible, we really wouldn't gain anything, like what we're going to do an amended budget 2 weeks before the real budget. So, but
no, I understand. I'm just saying,
in order to, we need to do this workshop as fast as possible so Jessica can budget for the stuff that we're not giving her the changes at the 11th hour. Once we get our ducks in a row, we'll try to work on that next week and then kind of get a consensus on when we can do that.
Yep, I can do that. And I think the other problem that we're going to run into, and John and I have talked about this, is the prices that are in our plan are way off probably I'm going to be honest, compared to what they probably will be. So what's in here, I'm not 100% sure. That's what's really going to be an issue too. Just throwing that out there so everyone knows.
Yeah, prices and time frames for ordering anything that you need. I mean, we're already running into that. So any prices that you set in stone a year or before forget that now, and time frames as well. So that's it. And I just want to say, I'm still trying to find out where they got the grant, but Langley supposedly. And I haven't been able to verify it, but I've heard it through the Coconut Telegraph that they have just received a grant for updating their whole water system, water and sewer. I don't know who it's from. I'm trying to find out. So if anybody has any, friends in Langley who are involved with that, maybe you can find out for us. But they supposedly got a grant for sewer and water. So,
Yeah, so I got an email because I belong to city administrators of Oregon, and I got an email or something with regards to that the other day, and I read through it. I don't remember exactly what it said about where they got their money, but I will look for it, and if I find it, I will send it to you guys.
Okay, thank you. Mm-hmm. And Jessica, I just want to verify one thing. They didn't approve it because they don't pay for the planning and the writing of grants or something like that. Is that what it was that we didn't qualify?
Yeah, it was more of the planning portion and the engineering portion that we need, obviously, still. So that's the reason why is what we were told. But those portions are included.
Then every plan you grant, they ask for those details. So it's really interesting that they don't involve that. But I understand. Well,
the grant in the fall actually includes those details of the grant. So that was a good thing about the fall grant, if that's what you wanted. So that does include that. So that's a good thing.
Thank you. Thank you for your guys' diligence on following up on this. I know it can be frustrating.
John, I was telling them about
when it comes to looking for funding, it seems like.
Yeah.
John, I was telling about the meter email that you sent me. I was trying to remember. I don't know if you want to talk about it for a second, if you have it in front of you.
I don't have it with me. I left it on my desk, but I will have, when we're ready to discuss it, I have 2 different vendors that are willing to put quite the presentation together for the city council. You can learn more about it and what the benefits of the electronic metering will do. I can tell you just offhand, right away, it would save me 3 months of labor that I'm spending on reading meters mechanically. I'm telling you, it will increase the revenue to the city because there's 2/3 of the meters that are over 1 million miles that aren't reading correctly anyway. There is a significant cost, and it's going to be way more than what we had outlined prior to me getting here. I think it's $250K or so. It's not too far off of that, but I think long term, it's probably one of the things we really need to chase as soon as we get Coast Guard pump station done. This is going to be my next higher priority push, is to get the electronic metering started, and then we get leak detection in it. We save Caitlin, I don't know how many hours she's putting into it, But I know right now we've got about 3 months a year tied up just going around and reading these meters, and then another day or so doing rereads and shut-offs and shut-ons and everything else. And I think it's going to be a huge benefit. I've talked to several cities up the coast that had done the change out, and they're reaping the benefits of it. So it's something we really need to pursue. How we prioritize it with the things that we have going on right now is kind of tough to do. But I think it should be at the very top of our list. I think number 1 is Coast Guard pump station. I think number 2 is jumping into the electronic meters. We've been really lucky. This month is probably the first month I think we ran January, I think we ran maybe less than 8 hours of overtime. We've been able to pretty much maintain 25 feet in our tank and run 8 hours a day and manage a decent level at the reservoir. And February, we're doing the same thing right now tonight and tomorrow. I think are the first 2 days we ran late because of dumping tubes in the flock tank. So that's something I haven't seen in a year and a half. Of course, we did tighten the system up quite a bit with leaks. I'm not pushing it to the top of the tank like the prior operator did. I like to keep it at 25. That additional pressure with our aging system causes additional leak. And we're starting to see the benefit of that. So sometime in the near future, we're going to do a midnight to 2 o'clock drawdown and see what we actually lose during the time. And then we'll kind of have a better of idea where we're at. But it is far less than it was 6 months ago for sure.
Excellent.
Check can change tomorrow with the big main breaks, but hey, take the win.
Can't believe you would say that out loud.
I know, right? Okay, I'll knock on wood.
Any other questions for John? Hey, John, I got a quick one. Was that quote just for the meters or was that for the whole system? Because that number is not far off, because when we talked about it before, that was just for the meters, not for the brains and the radio links and all that. But that was 5 years ago, too.
Right. And there's a couple of versions. I'm leaning towards the ones that have the polymer meters that have the leak detection in them versus the Venters that we had the quote for, I think, $250 from Budge. The newer polymers with the leak detection don't require the drilling of the lids and installation of AMI and all that stuff, from what I understand. Now, maybe I mixed up. He gave me so much information, and I've looked at like 6 brands of electronic meters now, so it's kind of all jumbled up. But and I can't even remember the stupid name of them right now, but I have one in my shop. At any rate, one system, it depends on how we go. We can do the meter install, and then we can upgrade the telemetry part of it later. If we want to go to one touch, one read, where Caitlin pushes a button and it does the automatic billing, yeah, there's a cost to that. And to tell you the truth, I really don't know what the cost is as we step through the process to get to where we want to be. But Langvoice is on bump sticks where they just drive around and touch each one, and it does the read. And so there's no misreading meters any longer. It's huge for both us and the clerk that's entering those numbers, right? So we can do it as baby steps and start with electronic meters, and then we add because the way I understand it now, the ones I'm looking at, they read every 30 seconds. So that helps us when there's a leak at a tenant side, because the tenant will know exactly when their leak started and how much water they actually lost and how much we're going to discount them. There's no more, well, we think it was 2,000, we're going to give you a discount for 2,000, right? We'll be able to pinpoint it. And, if there's a lot of houses that sit vacant, there's probably, I can't even tell you how many, at least 50 that meters never move on. If they have a break in their house, that thing could run for, we wouldn't see it for months. We'd lose 30 days of water in that service, which is a lot of water. So there's a lot of benefit to this. We just got to figure out which way we want to go and how far we want to go. Even with Tony's system, we were going to have to drill lids, install the antennas, and then install key antennas throughout the town because of a couple of hills, DD Street, Coast Guard, and I think Vista area, D Terrace maybe, because we wouldn't get the bounce around we needed for the telemetry. So that's just all the stuff we're going to have to take in consideration, look at the price, and pick the one that fits our budget.
Then make sure we account for going back twice if we don't go for the Cadillac version.
Right. Well, and you may find out that the Cadillac version is cheaper if you just do it up front than it is in piecemealing it together. We could end up buying 2 Cadillacs. So that's what's important about really going, A to Z and figuring out where we want to be and then try to hit that the first time around probably.
Because you would kind of assume that you wanted to contract that out so you guys can keep doing your job and it just gets switched out, but I don't know. That's future conversations. We should probably move on. I think everybody's for pursuing that as hard as possible. What is it, second on the list for priorities?
Yeah, it's right there with Coast Guard here pump station. That thing is, as Tim saw it firsthand. He knows what we're talking about at Coast Guard pump station. So we're on one pump there. We can't meet fire demand as it is. I don't know that they could prior to me getting here either, but that thing's really going to blow a pipe any minute. So I'm really trying to get a second quote on it so I can bring it to the council, but I haven't been able to get the pump tech to shoot me a second quote yet. We do have one vendor local, and it was around 150 for the complete skid, which that's not too bad.
Is there a point where we just go with the one bid? I mean, if it's such an emergency?
Possibly, but it really needs, I've been struggling with this. It really needs to go to probably Civil West to make sure that the bid that we are looking at meets all the requirements and parameters engineering wise for the water supply and the firefighting supply we need to add, right?
Is that worth doing and proceeding with?
It is if I don't have a second quote within a couple of months. Yeah, I think so. I think we're all right for a month or so. We talked about getting the manifolds rebuilt. That was $20K, and I put $20K Band-Aid on it, replace the pump skid 6 months later, right? So there's some piping where it comes in through the floor that needs to be cut out and redone, and we need to get a meter on that anyway. So it'd be a great time to add a meter to the tank. And then we'd have an actual what's leaving the tank number, which we don't have, which would be huge, right, Pat?
Yeah, I mean, that could be 20% up there pretty easily. Talk about a hard spot to see a slow leak.
It really is. So there's some benefit there. I just haven't had the time to really put my head straight to it because there's so much other stuff going on. But I will make it my mission in the next couple of weeks to see if I can't run down a second quote and some estimates for you for next meeting.
And one thing we could do, John, is kind of tee up Civil West and get a ballpark on how much it would cost to spec that out. And then next weekend or next month, we could kind of preemptively approve it. If you don't get any other bids, you can just pull the trigger on that without having to wait the 2 weeks or the month or whatever. So.
Okay. And I think there might have been an estimate. I think it was addressed in the 2014 master plan, but I don't trust the numbers anymore. And yeah,
for a 25-year master plan, they sure make us update it a lot.
Right.
Sorry. Okay, so we got to move on. We got a half an hour here, and James is glaring at me already. So just kidding, James. All right. So the first draft, new business A, first draft of ordinance 2022-05, abatements of nuisance and dangerous housing. This document, the more I read into it, the more complex it gets, and when you see seismic, that's scary, and that could be detrimental in ways that we might not see. So, Jessica, what's the timeline on this? You're muted still.
Okay, sorry. So there isn't really a timeline. This is something that we had talked about doing. So with the seismic coding and seismicability and stuff, I know the school went through their seismic testing, if I remember, Lauren. And so they already got their certificates. There's other things like that have already been done within city limits. We know, obviously, and a lot of those buildings are actually going to be grandfathered in under the old building code that's on here. So it would mainly be the new stuff that we're talking about at this point.
So do we want to try and pull any triggers on this right now or study it for another month since we have the timeline on it? And this is just a portion of that document.
Pat?
Yo.
I would make a motion to table the nuisance and dangerous housing document till next meeting. I would like more time to take a closer look at it. It's a very complex document, and we really need to make sure what, more than likely we're going to end up with it, but we really need to take a look at it closely.
Would you like me to send you guys the full big versions of everything via email or something, or like that, so you guys can actually go through those whole sections? I can definitely do that.
And I think email, like our packets are pretty big. Some of the stuff we might want to link to us because we're burning a lot of trees with these packets. So we'll talk about it, but it's food for thought. Okay, so did I get a second? Oh, James seconded that motion. So I'm going to go ahead and call for the vote. Greg, would you like to table this until next meeting?
It's a lot to bring in, so yeah, I agree with taking some more time. It's a lot.
Carolyn?
Yes.
Lauren? That was a Lauren yes. Gary?
Yes.
Lauren, yes.
Got it. Tim?
Tim, yes.
Did I ask Carolyn?
Yes, you did.
All right. Sorry, it's a long week. And James?
James, yes.
All right, so that is tabled until next month. New business B, water curtailment, second level of declaration. So my first question to you, John, would be, did you just say that we're sitting okay right now, or we need to do this still?
Yeah, we need to do this. We haven't had rain in 2 months. Even though we're maintaining what we have, if something goes wrong, we will be SOL within a day or two.
Gotcha. So we are in the action level right now because of the impound. Because of the impound, not the tank, but the impound.
Right. The tank's okay for now.
Okay. Any other questions before we get a motion on that?
Well, I'll go ahead and move to declare a second level of concern from the Water Curtailment Ordinance 2022-04 beginning on February 18th, 2022.
I will second that motion.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm going to give that to Carolyn. All right, so we have a first and a second. Any discussion on that? All right, I'm going to call for the vote.
Tim, yes.
James?
James, yes.
Gary?
Gary, yes.
Greg?
Greg, yes.
Carolyn?
Carolyn, yes.
And Lauren?
Lauren, yes.
All right. Like I said, 8C, water conservation rates, go ahead and look that up, study it a little bit. It is a tool where, to help with conservation, maybe get a little bit more revenue. Kind of a sticky conversation, but it's a conversation we should probably have. Moving on to 8D, contract for water assistance provision.
I'll make a motion that the council approve the city administrator to sign the vendor agreement with Oregon Coast Community Action for the Low Income Household Water Assistance Program.
I second that motion.
All right. We have a motion on the table with a second. Is there any discussion on that? Seems pretty cut and dried. I will call for the vote then. Tim?
Tim, yes.
Greg?
Greg, yes.
James?
James, yes.
Gary?
Gary, yes.
Carolyn?
Carolyn, yes.
And Lauren?
Lauren, yes.
All right. Thank you all for that. All right. Now we're on to the 8E right-of-way usage for Stephen Stetson on page 118.
I couldn't tell where they want to put the fence because there's no drawing and I don't know. I wasn't able to look at what they did.
Cynthia, can I speak on this?
Yes, Cynthia, go ahead.
So I just wanted to first of all bring it to your attention that the current city admin is starting to do what the former city admin did. We already had.
Cynthia, does this have anything to do with the right of way?
Absolutely everything to do with the fence. We already had permission for this fence to be built. We didn't get it done in time. We called to let you guys know that we were going to finish our fence, and it's actually already been completed because she already gave permission to our contractors. We already had permission for this. We were just letting you know we were completing it.
So this was when you got the right of way 2 years ago?
Yeah, there's no need for a right of way. We built the fence on our own property.
Okay. Well, I guess that answers that. If it does happen to be on the right of the way, it might be unfortunate for a water line or something, but the fence is built, so...
It's 6 inches in on our property line.
On their property.
It's 6 inches inside our property line. So that means if somebody is standing on the outside of our fence, that means they're on our property by 6 inches. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's
not in the right of way.
Okay. So why was a right-of-way request filed?
That's a good question. Probably because somebody gave my dad the wrong paperwork.
All right. So did we get the checkoffs from staff on this right-of-way?
John has mentioned about removing some of the wood that's in the right-of-way.
Okay.
So there is a bunch of stuff, I believe, from the resident that's backed across towards Kitchener on the right of way. And that
yes, and we have a plan to take that to the dump.
After they built it, they were to remove all the debris that they used to kind of keep people from walking in that area.
Okay. But as far as the fence, the fence itself is okay. John. So we're going to go ahead and move on. If that's okay with everyone.
I maybe we need a motion to dismiss.
Well, that's what we already made a motion to okay it, and it sounds like it. But, is that redundant? If we already accepted it, do we need anything to re-accept it? Because it's real easy to do that. Okay, but we don't, so we're going to move on because we can do this meeting in 2 hours if we keep working on it. Okay, so our last business, 8F, vacation rentals. We did hear earlier from planning to kind of let them have their freedom on that. Is that what we directed them in the workshop? Pretty much?
Yeah, just to do residential and what they wanted to do. So I'm sure you guys read through your packet. So there was a little bit of controversy at this last meeting of what was said. So I tried to kind of backtrack and go through all of the rules and regulations that we have out there to show that it's not necessarily illegal because of these reasoning. They're all outlined in here. Number one, business licenses are issued based upon the business license code, chapter 5, which states that if you are required by the city of Port Orford or any other place to pay taxes, then you should have and are required to have a business license. So to me, that shows that they needed that business license that was done. Within the code, also on chapter 17, there's an authorization of similar uses, which I attached on here, that states that the city council can permit in a particular zone a use that is not listed in the title. None of these titles are listed in here. Vacation rentals, hotels, any of those items are in there as definitions. So, but with that being said, when the business license code was written and the TLT code, it was basically telling them that they were a business and that they had to file for licenses, was my thought process when I was going through the code. So that was kind of the permission from the city council to be able to do some of these things. Because we don't have it listed also in any other zone. So that changes a little bit of everything else. So based upon the conversation, and I think Jayla, you can stop me if you want to, but I think we also need to not only point planning towards the residential code, but I think we need to update and add some definitions with regards to hotel, motel, short-term rental, any of those things, because none of those are in the code at all. So that is a whole nother problem, actually, if you think about it, because you can't just assume what something means based upon what you think it is, if that makes sense. And hotel motel, me trying to be devil's advocate when they said pay to stay, I said, well, pay to stay is also, long-term rental. You pay to stay there, they'll kick you out. It goes through everything. So are you telling me then that long-term rentals are illegal too? So we need a definite definition before we have more people who are devil's advocate like me.
So if I understand correctly, Jessica, this is an update to the council. Planning is working on this. Planning is authorized to work on this, and there is no action needed other than this update?
I think we would just need to update and have them do definitions is my thought process.
So I'll make a motion that the council direct planning commission to review and amend the definitions for hotel, motel, lodging in the city of Port Orford code, and short-term rental. So they would work on defining those three things.
Can maybe we say any paid lodging, which would cover all of that, or do we want to be maybe it's better to be specific? I don't know.
They probably need to be picked out down the road.
Would include long-term rentals. So you've got to be more specific.
Okay.
I would second Gary's motion.
Okay. Any discussion on that or any clarification of the motion needed?
Well, hotels.
Commission can figure it out pretty good.
What was that?
Hotels and motels are allowed in commercial zones in our zoning.
Right.
They're just not defined.
There's no definition for hotel or motels. And so it's actually listed under tourist facility, but there's no definition as what hotel motels pertain to.
Okay. So essentially somebody could call a vacation rental a hotel motel is what you're saying.
Yes, because as the what Crystal said is pay to stay is hotel motel. Well, you pay to stay at a vacation rental also. So where does that pay to stay line drawn, if that makes sense?
Well, and like you said, you pay to stay in a long-term rental too.
Mm-hmm. And you kind of pay to stay at your house too. You get kicked out if you don't pay your mortgage.
Yes, that's.
You wouldn't want to go that far.
There is the transient angle to things. Like when you have more people in a dwelling, it changes the rules. It changes water systems. It changes parameters. So yes, it is the same as far as I pay you this fee or that fee, but the business is different. And that's kind of the hair to split. So it'll be more fun, but we have a motion in a second. Do we have any more discussion on that? Okay, 7:18. We can like talk about this one for 6 to 8 more minutes and be okay. Carolyn.
I was just wondering, in a residential area, you cannot have a motel.
That's what I was trying to point out.
Right. Yeah, so, it's not in there defined because it's not allowed.
It's not allowed.
Yeah.
So why, if a motel is not allowed, why is a vacation rental allowed?
Because the biggest thing is yes, the biggest thing that I can think of, and Shayla, stop me if you can, is there is literally no definition. So when you can't define, you don't know, and you can't put it somewhere where you have no physical. My thought is if you don't have a physical definition, then how can you distinguish between the two? Number one. Because they're both the same. And number two, I think with the city of Port Orford not having those definitions, it then becomes an authorized use, or it's a not listed authorized use versus the other thing in the code of 170803, because you don't have that. It's that's not physically listed. None of those are. So to me, that's the catch-22.
Yeah, and today people will come back and say, well, it doesn't say, short-term rental on here, so obviously we're okay, and so you have to clarify everything. That was my point about do we need it or
What do you got, Shayla? I saw you on mute.
No, I just think that you do need some definitions in your code, especially of short-term rentals, because I think that that's where the confusion has come from. You know, looking at the code hasn't always been looked at through the lens you're currently looking at it.
That's right.
10 years ago, vacation rentals weren't the issue they are now. And now they are. So we do need to do some code revisions to deal with some of these issues because of the proliferation of so many vacation rentals throughout the coast.
Okay, so our motion is sound then. The motion on the table is sound.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, I'll call for the vote. Carolyn,
yes.
Greg,
yes.
Lauren,
yes.
Gary,
yes.
Tim, yes.
And James.
James, yes.
Okay, so we're moving forward on that. Planning can have that discussion. Thank you, planning. That saves us hours and hours and hours at council level. And moving on to considerations. Do we have any citizen considerations this evening? Jessica or John, do you have? Oh, sorry, Ann, go ahead. Or Miss Vitalis.
One second here. Yeah, thank you. I want to thank everyone for all of your excellent effort and work on so many important issues affecting our community, especially related to our urgent water issue. But tonight, I just wanted to bring up one thing quickly. In December and January, you heard from citizens, and the mayor received a petition about a project that was 150 foot plus tall, but that remains unmentionable. And at that time, citizens and council members felt extremely frustrated and exasperated by loopholes in our code that made it impossible to even discuss a matter that was hugely important to our town's future. And at that time, the council members asked, is there anything we can do to avoid this situation in the future? And Shayla suggested the proactive and positive idea of going through the code to look at the outright uses sort of in an updated mindset, kind of like she just described, looking for things that we couldn't live with, trying to be proactive to avoid these kind of conflicts in the future. Jessica passed out to all of you a copy of the code the following month, but we've not really gotten back to addressing the matter. So I have taken a preliminary look at this. I think there are some things that would be good to do. And I know there's a lot of things happening, but if possible, I think it'd be great to get this into the pipeline of City Council. So just wanted to bring that up. And again, thank you all so much for your public service for us all.
Thank you.
Might I suggest that if you have muted callers that you unmute them and give them a chance to speak?
What? I don't think everyone actually that I muted is gone, so I don't have anyone now.
Okay, awesome.
Thank you, though.
Good call, though. All right, any other citizen concerns? All righty, staff, Jessica or John?
I don't have any, John.
Nope, I don't. Thank you all for supporting us and looking forward to the next budget year.
Yep.
Hey, John, real quick, what's the timeline on fixing the dam? I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Greg.
The timeline on fixing the dam, did we know what that is after this approval tonight?
With this approval, he said, 6 to 8 weeks at that point is when everything will be done, because they still have to do the engineering of the different things. So there's still a little bit of process in between now. So we're talking 6. He said 6 weeks, possibly shorter, but I'm going to say 6 to 8, just with the amount of time frame it takes to get stuff right now, just to give him a little bit of time.
At least it's a fairly easy engineering feat, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looks like we're moving into councilor concerns, unless Tim has a staff question.
No, I had a councilor concern.
Go for it.
So I just wanted to, Pat and I have been around for a while. And John, we did have $250,000 earmarked for those meters before you got here. And what happened is the PLC system failed. We robbed some money, about 50 grand. And then obviously the contact tank came around and we robbed the rest of the money. But we did, and that money came from that $2 and $3 charge on the water and the sewer side for these type repairs. But we did have the money to do that, and we were exploring electronic meters at the time. And I think Pat was right. It was about $250 for the meters, and then the other particulars were what really ramped that price up. But now that these things have been around, maybe they've stabilized some, and I know they're using composite materials now and stuff like that. So maybe we can get there. But I do know at the time, many cities had pulled those electric meters out because they were reading sitting on the city public works guy's desk. They were reading sitting on a desk. So cities had to pull hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of those meters out of their city. So that's one thing we just need to double check on and make sure we're not having those kinds of problems with those meters still. And I would encourage each and every counselor to research that. It's on the internet, you know, just so we can all be apprised of those kinds of problems.
Yeah, I think a lot of that's worked out. I've got one that's been sitting on my desk for 6 months. It still says 000. So
that's perfect. Those were true stories. It was really weird.
No, I did. I read about that. There was actually two different meter bands. I think Badger had one that did the same thing, and they had the same issues with the electronic meters at the same ones that CCE is using for electrical. When those first went into service, they had a lot of growing pains with them too. So luckily we didn't jump in at the ground floor, and it's, you know, it's gotten way better. I know that.
Yeah, because I know at the time Pat and I both were pretty adamant about there were some serious problems, and most of the other counselors did, you know, come to agree on that. But hopefully they're much better now. We can, you know, figure out a way to move forward.
Yeah, we don't have to do the whole town at one time. We could do, you know, a couple of blocks, a book, and test them and see what we see, you know, see how we like them. We could do two different brands if we wanted to, and on two streets or something. So there's a lot of options for us for sure.
Yeah, we have to keep in mind that I think the battery life, unless that's changed, is 20 years. So it has to be replaced in 20 years. So we want to do them in waves rather than doing every one of them at the same time, because then they would all, you know, have to be replaced at the same time at a, you know, a large cost. So
I'll be retired by then.
You'll be worrying about it too. Still,
I will. You're right.
All right. Thank you, Tim. Gary had one.
I was curious about the process in changing an outright use to conditional use, and whether multiple ones could be done at the same time, or how that process actually works. Could you help with that, Shayla?
Sure. So it would have to go through a hearing process, but you could revamp various portions of the code at once. So it would require the notice of those affected areas and then a series of hearings that led up to an adoption. If you were going to deal with your actual zoning code, those dwellings or pieces of property in those zones would receive notice of those changes, and they'd have an opportunity to speak at meetings. But you could do more than one at a time.
And then would we start that workshop probably to determine the things we want to do?
You would start that at a workshop, try to make some early decisions, and then open it up to public hearings at your planning commission level.
Perfect. Awesome. So that's something we can ponder here in the future.
Sure.
And speaking of that, Gary, did you have anything? Let me just say this really quick before I forget, but along the way dropped continuing action items off the agenda. And we used to have like 8 of them, but if we said we're only going to do 3 or something like that, keep it, just to keep on task, I'm kind of thinking that we should put continuing action items back on the agenda. Oh, wait, I make the agenda. So let's just do that. Okay. Excellent. So any other counselor concerns from anyone? James, there you go. I can see your hand now.
With regards to something that happened a little bit earlier in our meeting, I just want to mention that our staff works very hard and everyone has their own goals and viewpoints and they frequently conflict. Yet I find the verbal assault of our staff during a meeting to be very unacceptable, especially during the privilege of speech on a subject where the attack on staff was not necessary to resolve the matter at hand. I will be very insistent about this in the future and whatnot. We do not need our staff to be verbally attacked. As far as I'm concerned, it should never happen again. We've discussed this before. Pat, you're the mayor. I lay this firmly and squarely on your solid shoulders.
Thank you, James. I appreciate that, and you're right. And I apologize to the staff. I tried to quell everything, and I just need to be more decisive in the future. Thank you, James. Any other council concerns? Oh, it's 7:31. Dang it. Quick mayor concern. I think we're doing a good job. I think there's blood in the water. I think we have a lot of major issues on it, and the reason that we're painting ourselves into these corners, but it's a good corner to be in, and I think we are making progress. This stuff is just difficult.
Overwhelming.
What's that, Carolyn?
I said it's overwhelming at times.
Yeah.
What needs to be done?
Stay overwhelmed. Yeah, just stay overwhelmed. Don't relax, and you'll get used to it.
Yes.
The key to this and difficult things is that we stick to the baseline. And one way we can do that, and Jessica's working on getting our comprehensive plan into this binder, and that's our guideline. That's like, we have to stick with the basics and we have to use the rules so we don't get fettered stuff on the other side, or somebody calls us on some contentious point that puts us back 3 months because we're dealing with it. So we're all motivated. We're doing good. And Carolyn,
the one thing I would recommend is to start going through the ordinances and everything, because there's a lot of difference in between the zones and ordinances and stuff. It needs to all be gone through before we start on something else. Or at least if we're going to start on something, let's go there first and see what it says so we know if we need to make changes or not.
Agreed.
Because we tried to do it in planning, probably 7, 8 years ago, because it was a mess. We knew that.
All right. We'll get to a point with this fire stuff where we're kind of in the lurch waiting on funding, and then we'll tackle some of this other stuff, because we can't forget about sewer. That's another huge chunk of money that we're going to have to be looking for. So keep that in your head. I'm 3 minutes over. Oh, no, James, this is your fault now. I'm just kidding.
I just have a quick question. It shows that the future meeting, it says it's going to be a hybrid. Is it actually going to be a hybrid?
That's a good question. So the mask mandates end here at the end of March. So that is a question for all of you guys to do. What do you guys want to do? It will, obviously, we do have to have hybrid no matter what, if we do go back to chambers. So just keep that in mind. By law, we now have to always have a hybrid plus if we're in the meeting.
Okay, somebody give me a motion one way or another on what you want to do.
I'd make a motion to go ahead and do one more online meeting just to make sure that COVID is behind us.
I second that.
Okay, Tim, I'm calling for the vote.
Well, I think I understand what Gary's saying, but Jessica just said we have to continue to have hybrid meetings according to state law.
If we are in chambers.
Pardon me?
If we're not chambers, then we're just online.
Okay, so Tim, yes.
Gary?
Gary, yes.
Greg?
Greg, yes.
James?
James, yes.
Lauren?
Lauren, yes.
And Caroline?
Carolyn, yes.
All right.
So am I safe to say that April will be hybrid then, according to when I do the agenda too? Just think about that.
Gotcha. Will do. Like, we'll know more. We know what we're doing next month, and we will make the call for March, April, whatever we make for next month is what we'll do. So, all righty. Thank you all. I'm going to go ahead and close this meeting at 7:35. Was that hands raised or fingers ready to leave? I think it's fingers ready to leave. So we are adjourned at 7:35.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Enjoy your evening. All citizens who stayed with us.
This conference is no longer being recorded.
Well.